All right, you guys can hear me okay? All right, so thanks for having me as well. Thank you, Sandy, for inviting me to come and share. Full disclosure, I've never given this talk before, so I'm not entirely sure. It's not scripted or anything like that, but it is my story, and I'm gonna have to keep it short because I do have a class I have to go to at 1 o'clock, but I'm at the Ross School of Business, and my name is Michael Metzger. And I've been there for quite some time, 26 years, and it's been a wonderful 26 years. It's such a privilege to be at such a wonderful school, one of the top business schools in the world, and it is a real blessing. But let's go to the next slide if we could. My story, or do I operate the slide? There we are. So this is my story, and of course I'm up here because I was recently diagnosed as being neurodivergent on the autism spectrum. And I had no idea of this at all in my life, but my story started with this little person here, which is my daughter, Kate. And to make it short, we knew that when Kate was born, and I'm talking about this with her permission, and she's doing great things right now. She is a senior graduating from Smith College, and she's brilliant. We knew that when she came into the world, but we also knew that she was a little different. She was experiencing the world differently. We were certain of this. She had a lot of sensory issues and other things, but a really sharp kid. So that's kind of where the story begins. And I don't actually know what's next, but I know my slides are supposed to remind me what's next. Oh yeah. So Kate went to Costa Rica when she was 6 weeks old. So I was on faculty at the top business school there, and it happened to be located in beautiful Costa Rica. And this is Kate in front of our home, and it was not even a quarter mile down from her school, Colegio Santa Fe Bilingüe. It wasn't really a bilingual school, but they said it was fashionable to be bilingual. So. But Kate was about as bilingual as any 6-year-old. In this picture, she's maybe 5 or something like that. And my office was maybe a half a mile away from, well, not even that, about another quarter mile away from her school. So I would walk her to school, and then I would walk to my office and to do my stuff and my teaching. And so one of the strange gifts that Kate had is she was extremely gifted with languages. And she was reading at an extremely early age, like really by the age of 3, she was reading books. And it was quite astounding. But she was also very good with languages. And I remember this is the day where she got to read, she read the poem of Juan Santa Maria, who is kind of like their Paul Revere or something like that. It's their Dia de Independencia. And she read it in both Spanish and English at like 5 years old. And it's a kind of an extensive poem. And so I picked her up one day from school, and everybody was like, Katie, all right, rockero, enhorabuena, and said all these wonderful things and hanging outside the bus and waving at her. And I said, Katie, what happened today? And she said, I don't know. I said, how come all these people know who you are? And then the teacher told me that Kate had read the poem, Juan Santa Maria in Spanish, and then she read it in English. And it was great. No one else could do that at this school, primary and secondary school. The reason I also have this slide up here is that while I'm on the spectrum, and it's created some challenges for me, and it's also given me like an incredible drive and focus, and I go very deep in whatever it is I set my mind to. It's had some unexpected advantages for me working abroad. So I work in Latin America quite a bit. I'm kind of a Latin Americanist, and I teach at the graduate level in Spanish. And I noticed that reflecting on this picture and Kate's strange gift is that I've navigated a culture that's not my own, which is a neurotypical world. My whole life, I've been trying to figure out what's the right thing to do, observing, listening, vicariously mimicking other people and things like this, and getting good at it. So when you're in another culture, you're in another culture that's not your own, and a language that's not your own. And so to navigate that, you you have to be very observant, and of course that's exhausting. That's called masking as atypical people, neurodivergent people try to make their way in a neurotypical world. We try to put on a face or something that is acceptable, and we don't really show up as our authentic selves. We all do this to a certain level, whether you're neurotypical or not. But anyways, I thought that was interesting that, my success in Latin America was, probably attributed partly to my neurodiversity. So this is our fur baby. This is Isabel, and that's my wife, Maureen. We're all probably neurodivergent, our dog included. And literally, we're all on Zoloft, and it's an amazing drug. But this is Isabel. She's a bit much. That's kind of being on the spectrum. You're either way too much or you're not enough, and you never seem to dial it in right. And that can be good in the classroom. My students think that's very funny and very entertaining. They don't know what's coming up next, but sometimes my colleagues are like, wow, switch to decaf, or that was really direct. You're right, but you probably shouldn't have said that, type of thing. That happens more than probably more than my colleagues wish. But it's just the way I am. So we learned, Kate came into the world differently, and her childhood was pretty difficult because she didn't have a diagnosis. She was misdiagnosed at 7 years of age, and Maureen and I knew something was definitely up. But Kate was not diagnosed, and we suspected, the usual markers of what autism is, we had those. But for some reason, she didn't receive that diagnosis until she was 18 years old. So her childhood was challenging, quite challenging and exhausting, to say the least. And so we had subsequently been in family therapy to help process what was a really difficult childhood. And through that family therapy, I recognized that Kate's childhood was very similar to my childhood, very similar. And hopefully not as similar, because as an autistic person, you might be surprised to learn that you're the subject of bullying. You're not the bullier, but you're often subject to bullying, and that can happen from adults as well. And I suffered that as a child from people in whose care I was entrusted, because I didn't understand. I didn't know how to make sense of what it is they were asking of me and why this wasn't appropriate. And I thought that's normal. That's what every kid has an adult that wants to beat them up or abuse them or humiliate them or something. And then a therapist said, no, that's actually not normal. So I hope that Kate didn't experience that. But so it became clear that, the therapist said, you should probably get diagnosed because it sounds very much like you're on the spectrum. And one of the things that the therapist said, we're talking about my childhood and how I did an awful lot of running, and that I was an extremely shy kid. I mean, painfully shy. But what I did do is run, and I ran a lot. I was quite a good runner. And I ran a little excessively. I was pretty obsessed with it. And she said, oh, well, you were self-medicating. And I said, wow, that is amazing. You are probably dead on that one. And I said, not a bad way to self-medicate, the endorphin high. But then, so things came around, and I was diagnosed about a year ago. Oh, this is our cat, Ailu. Ailu is probably the only neurotypical person in the house. Ailu is the most well-adjusted being in our house and runs the show. So I was diagnosed, and that was very, very helpful in so many ways for my family, for Kate, for us to connect around this, to make sense of both her childhood and my parenting. Very hard to parent without a script, or without a diagnosis as well. It's not a question of, wow, your kid's being willful, or will they need to try harder? She was trying so hard and she was so exhausted. So that would have been very nice to have that diagnosis, but it's made her who she is. She's a wonderful, resilient kid. I'm a very resilient person. I've been at the Ross School of Business for 26 years, top business school. Great place, pretty intense, but a really great place, a privileged place to be. But I learned not to take myself too seriously. That's what this is about. We were studying a case on Legos near bankruptcy, very serious stuff. And I saw a professor wearing this Lego suit once, and it just actually absolutely blew me away. I thought it was the most hilarious thing. I do not like edutainment or trying to play to the crowd and try to be a funny guy or a comedian or something. But I did do this because the essence of solving this case was Lego had a lot of operational problems and they were facing bankruptcy, but they had strayed from the mission of what they were all about, which was play. And so to try to drive the concept home, you know, they had forgotten why people play with Legos, and they were focused on the business end of things, and they missed the boat. So I wore that to also to get my kids just to lighten up, you know, and they really are nervous at Ross about their GPAs and such. So anyways, yeah, I was diagnosed, and obviously I've chosen to share this, you know, with the world, and people have said, oh man, you really don't want to do that, you know, there's stigma associated to that. But I'm at the point in my career where, you know, I'm about to turn 60, and this is so important to me and my family, and I love the University of Michigan and Ross. I really do. It is a wonderful place, and it is my home, and I feels home, and it does feel welcoming. That I want to dedicate the remainder of my career to advocating and for looking into neurodivergence and entrepreneurship in particular, because there's some amazing entrepreneurs that are neurodivergent, and it's because of their neurodivergence, I believe, that's my hypothesis, that they're so successful. So I have nothing to lose by revealing my diagnosis to the world and my colleagues. I'm already rub people the wrong way, and it might help for them to know why. And some people like it, and some people have a hard time with it. But it's who I am, and I can't do it a different way. Whatever comes in through my brain comes out my mouth. I'm very direct. I'm very honest. I'm very transparent, and that is some of the characteristics of being on the spectrum. Is this absolute being in love and enamored with the truth, with justice and fairness, and you know, so that's what I'm going to do. That's what I'm going to do with the remainder of my time. So Kate and I have a great relationship. I got a little promotion. That was a long time coming, probably for who I am. But I'm pleased to say that things are going well at the Ross School of Business, and it is a great place to be, and it is inclusive. And that's me, the little kid. So sorry. I wanted to be in front like this because I said if I break down, I want everybody to see it. I don't want to be hiding behind a podium. This is to every little kid who is autistic. Did not let that passion die. So that kid stands before you today as a professor at the Ross School of Business, and I got a class to teach.